Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and Happy New Year to every single one of you. Hopefully 2019 is going to be a better year for all of us. One of you suggested that I cover a game of Jan-Krzysztof Duda from the World Blitz Championship. Duda performed incredibly well in this event. He finished second, just half a point behind Magnus Carlsen with 16.5 points. So in this game that I'm about to show you, he was playing the very talented young Russian Grandmaster Vladislav Artemiev. Artemiev had white in this game and Duda had black pieces. So the game opened with knight to f3, the Reti opening. Duda responded with d5 and g3 from Artemiev. So maybe going for a King's Indian attack. g6, we have bishop g2, bishop g7, d4, knight f6, both sides castle, c3 and c6. So we have a completely symmetrical structure on the board. So here Artemiev played knight b to d2, trying to achieve a break with e4. So Duda played bishop to f5, controlling the e4 square. Artemiev played knight to h4, provoking the bishop. Bishop drops back to e6 and now f4. So it's obvious that white is now playing for a kingside initiative and he wants to go f5. So here Duda played knight to a6. Note that if he goes knight b to d7, this would cause a weakening in black structure after the move f5. And the bishop cannot retreat back to d7, so he would have to take, compromising his structure. So here after f4, knight to a6 from Duda, we have f5, bishop d7 and e4. So Artemiev breaks in the center, and this gives his queen more scope on the king side. So this has to be taken, otherwise white would go e5, gaining even more space on the king side. So Duda took the pawn, bishop takes e4. So in this position Artemiev is slightly better because of his kingside initiative and also he has more space. So Duda now played queen to b6. So this looks at b2, making it more difficult for white to develop the dark square bishop. And also black has ideas of playing c5 as a source of counterplay. So this move cost Artemiev a slight bit of discomfort. Ideally white should try and keep the queens on the board because of his kingside initiative, but here Artemiev played queen to b3, trying to relieve some pressure off b2 and also d4. Duda played bishop to f6, looking at this knight. We have bishop to h6, attacking the rook. Queen takes b3, Duda now trades queens, and he played rook after e8. White is still slightly better here because of his space advantage, but black is reasonably solid. So Artemiev played knight to g2, knight to c7, this gets out of the way of white pushing b4 and b5, knight e3, knight b5, so both sides reroute their knights. We have g4, giving more protection to f5, knight d6, so Duda managed to centralize his knight with an attack on the bishop, so bishop d3 and bishop g7. So since black is more cramped in this position, it's logical to try and exchange some pieces. So white decided to keep the bishop, bishop f4, and we have a6, so that frees up the rook to move and also stops white from going b4 and b5. So Artemiev played rook a to e1, rook a to d8, we have b4 and bishop to c8, opening up this rook. And you can see here that black's rooks in the center are just waiting for the e and d file to open up. So here h4 from Artemiev, and Duda meets Artemiev's attack on the wing with a break in the center. Here he plays e5. So that was taken. Bishop takes e5, and here bishop g5 from Artemiev. This is the right idea, but there was a slightly more effective execution. So here Artemiev could have played f takes g6 and f takes g6. Taking with the f pawn is better, so as not to give white a target on f7 with potentially bishop c4. So here bishop g5, and now black cannot interpose with f6. He would have to play rook to d7, and his pieces are just kind of awkward here. So going back to the game, bishop g5 from Artemiev. But now f6, and with this move black is completely fine. So here bishop to f4, bishop takes f4, rook takes f4, g takes f5, g takes f5. So here rook to e5, a reasonable move from Duda. He could have also played knight to f7, makes a lot of sense trying to place the knight on e5, but here rook to e5. So here king to f2, protecting this knight on e3 in anticipation of black doubling on the e-file. So Duda sensed some danger on the g-file and he tucked his king to f8. We have rook to g1 and here knight to e8. So combining defense with attack. The knight covers f6 and also this potentially dangerous g7 square. And black opens up the rook on d8. It's now attacking the bishop and could also come in on the second rank. So here Artemiev played bishop c4 looking for rook g8 check. But here black should be fine because after the king moves to e7, there is no rook g7 check because the knight covers that square. Duda plays rook to d2 check. We have king to f3 and b5 from Duda. So attacking the bishop, but more importantly, vacating the b7 square for black's own light square bishop. And slowly but surely, Duda is improving his position. So here Artemiev played rook to g8 check. We have king to e7, bishop to e6. So in this position, both players were incredibly short of time. So taking is actually completely fine for Duda, but understandably he wanted to avoid any possible complications. So here after bishop to e6, Duda played bishop to b7, also a very strong move. So he's getting ready to take control of this long diagonal. And his next move is going to be c5. So white cannot step out of this diagonal with a move like king to g3 or king to g4 because this knight on e3 would be undefended. So with very little time on the clock, this looks incredibly difficult for Artemiev. In fact, he blunders on the next move. He played knight to g4. And with the knight on g4, this blocks the rook. And the knight also no longer controls this important g2 square. So here the only move which allows white to survive is rook to h8. And after c5 check, you can go king to g4, and white somehow hangs on. Because if rook takes e3, then there is a rook takes h7, followed by picking up the bishop. So back to the game, Artemiev played knight to g4, and now c5 check. So we have rook to g2 check, white's king is in terrible danger, rook to e1, threatening to play rook h1 check. And so knight to f2, that defends h1. But unfortunately that also leaves behind the e3 square, so Duda takes advantage of this. So the king has nowhere to go in this position. Rook to f3 is forced, and Duda wins material now. He plays bishop takes f3, rook takes g2, bishop takes g2, king takes g2. Black is just up the exchange, and this is just a matter of technique for Duda. So I will now play through the rest of this game without any commentary. So this was the final move of the game. Artemiev resigned in this position as he will lose his knight and eventually the game. So that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed the game. Thanks for watching and have a great year ahead.